Hey guys, today I'm going to be answering a lot of critical questions, I assume, from people who do not believe I am consistent in my honesty. This is what I find to be very interesting, is that I have been repeatedly willing to answer all these questions, and I have been proven again and again consistent in everything I'm saying, and yet people still insist that I am lying or that I'm guilty of things that I am certainly not guilty of, despite the fact that my story has repeatedly checked out. And it makes me conclude that some people just want to hate, because they're jealous, because I don't agree with them on certain issues. Who knows? Regardless, for the people who are willing to listen, here I am. And tweet at Onision your critical questions. Please bring critical questions. Let's make this a kind of like a resolution project where everything is concluded with the answers I give. Because, of course, it's not a matter of whether or not I'm telling the truth and believing me. It's a matter of whether or not I'm telling the truth and my story checks out. So you'll have to decide for yourself if it all makes sense and if it sounds reasonable. I feel like people just think you're lying because they feel the need to hear the other version of the story. They did hear the other version of the story. It was sated with lies in hopes to make them look good. But that's the thing, is I'm willing to admit both my significant faults and where I'm right as well. Some of the stuff you mentioned in this video happened to me difficult to watch, but they're talking about the rape-related video, the rape apologist. A lot of people have been accusing me of being a rape apologist, which is due to the fact that I use someone sleeping around as a reason to suggest that a person would be willing to have sex, which was my mistake. It was a major error on my part, and I've been paying for it every single day. Obviously, how many people you have slept with has nothing to do with whether or not you can be raped. My intention for saying that was because I wanted to show that this person was not only talking about sleeping with me prior, not only suggesting that we sleep together prior, not only completely happy with how everything went down after, not only completely happy with everything that happened during. I was merely conveying they're used to having sex in the sense that they were also consensual with me, just like they were with the others. So it's something that a lot of times rapists use against rape victims, and that's where I was wrong, because I was using the same argument that actual rapists would use. Mind you, the way the actual incident went down is exactly as I said again and again. They were consensual before, they were consensual during, and they were consensual after, which is why the events continued to occur, i.e. we had sex multiple times in the following days. She bragged to all her friends. It was a very pleasant experience for her. She even asked me to marry her. Early on, I was discussing marriage like a year later, but she wanted to marry me early on. So it doesn't make sense. Actually, it does make sense. I broke up with her the final time, and suddenly she becomes a victim, even though the entire time we were dating, she wanted to be with me forever and ever and ever. So it's very, very silly that people don't see this for what it is. I broke up with someone, and then all of a sudden I'm a horrible human being, whereas prior, everything was supposedly fine. And actually, no, she said I was the best she ever had, so that was quite the compliment to me, and then I heard that when she was talking to someone else, I was only average. So, again, it's an example of how there's inconsistencies with what they tell me. I never told her she was the best I ever had, just because I don't like to say things that aren't true to people that I'm involved with, or anyway. I have a hard time telling people things that I do not believe. Are you worried going back with Shiloh will end the same way as it did before? Shiloh and I are going to be going to counseling right away when she gets back, and I understand that she lies a lot, but that is not something that's going to stop me from being with her because of how much she loves me and how beautiful her love for me is. Before I met her, I didn't really understand love. in the sense that I never really felt it to the degree where I would become so involved. And once she exposed me to that, I was kind of a totally different person, and that's why I was such a wreck, and I ended up rebounding after we broke up, just because I was so desperate to fill the void that she left. Rebounding, mind you, with the worst case scenario in a lot of ways, just because I had previously made a video about the person that I would never date, and I ended up with that person. It was ridiculous. How long should a rape victim know a person before they can trust someone again? Or how long, I think they're asking if you've been raped, how long should it take before you can trust someone again? I wouldn't trust people after being raped. I seriously wouldn't, because it's like, I mean, you have someone that you thought was trustworthy, and they just completely betray you. They betray your trust, and they just wreck you. And you risking going through that again, it seems like something far too difficult to deal with. And something I notice a lot of guys are doing is they're saying, oh, rape isn't a big deal because they themselves they could handle being raped, like butt raped. But here's the thing with that. You don't have a vagina, okay? You're not in the position of a female. Females operate differently than males. Them being raped is different than us being raped. So for us to pretend like that's not a big deal, it's ignorant. You do not have a vagina. You do not have the sexual organs of a female. It's entirely different with them. Someone says, how do I come up with video ideas? I just do. I look around, ideas are everywhere. I see your point in exposing the truth, but did it ever feel like people know too much about your life? Yeah, it's obvious they know too much. But there's no going back now. How is Shiloh doing? Shiloh is doing okay. I'm supporting her financially right now so she can survive. And I'm basically trying to get her to kind of have a stable life again, because for a while it was really hectic for her, with the hospital and everything. As far as sepsis, I'm very certain she never had it, and she hasn't shown evidence of having it, and I just think that's one of the things that I have to accept about Shiloh, is sometimes she makes things up to make me sympathize or feel bad just so I'll get back with her or something. Like, that's normally her motive, and I understand it. I don't appreciate it, but I understand it. How are you and Nibbles feeling? I really hope things look up for you. Well, right now I'm being accused of a bunch of things I didn't do, so that's kind of nasty. But Nibbles is doing good. Why are you and Shiloh back together? Not a complaint, I'm quite happy for it, but that's the reason. Because she's the only woman who ever really loved me, and I really love her. Someone asked me if I'm uncircumcised. I'm not going to answer that question. I feel it's really inappropriate, and it's not really relevant to anything. I'm actually offended you asked that. Why do you think you have the right to comment on rape? Because I'm supporting rape victims. I don't feel like anyone should feel bad for supporting rape victims. If you're speaking out against them, then you may have something. Why did you promote so-and-so's new page only to make tons of negative posts and videos about them a few months later? The reason I did that is because she asked me to, and we were on good terms at the time. And then I had talked to all the people in my life who kept asking me, why am I talking to somebody who betrayed me on a level as to lie and cheat and steal to get her way to my money? And then I realized it. I said, wow, this person's really corrupt. So I sent her an email saying that I never wanted to talk to her again so long as she was continuing to betray me. That is why I promoted her videos initially, and then later on changed my mind about her, because everybody convinced me that she was a pretty nasty person for what she was doing to me. How do you feel about people lying to their boyfriend and girlfriend on how they act, etc.? I don't know what you mean. Lying how they act? I think lying's wrong, and it's a terrible thing, but obviously I'm willing to put up with it for the sake of being loved, genuinely, so I feel. If you were in what you thought was a healthy relationship and they left you for no apparent reason, how would you deal with that? I would try to get answers. People leaving you high and dry without any idea as to why, it's pretty unpleasant. And I feel like in order to resolve situations, it's good to discuss it with them. One of the things you guys may have heard is the voicemails that I left one of my exes. That was an example of me trying to resolve things. A lot of people were kind of put off by the fact that I kept calling myself a stalker in those voicemails. I was joking. Repeatedly, I was joking. You could actually hear it in my voice. I'm like, I'm sorry I'm being such a stalker, ha ha ha. You know, it was obviously something I wasn't taking seriously. Those phone calls actually took place in a matter of a few hours. I think it was like 12 hours, something like that. I called her 20 times, left I think seven or 8 voicemails, not sure how many. But obviously you can see the progression where I say that letter I read like this letter through maybe 50% of it, and then I called her and I said 90% of it was true. Because I feel like 90% of what she says, maybe 70%, 90 to 70% in the second letter was accurate. And that's something I haven't really discussed. There's a lot of things that she says that are really accurate. However, the things that she warps, you got to pay attention to that small percentage. The things that she warps are really critical things. Really important things that you don't say about people if you're not being honest. And so she warped all these really critical points. And the first one, it may have been 90%. I didn't read it all the way through because it was just, I was really emotional at the time. And then I took the blame for her, saying, she's completely right, when it's very clear that I didn't support that very statement. I was just trying to get back with her. And I thought by siding with her and sticking up for her, she would have sympathy for me, but she didn't. And because she didn't have sympathy, that's when I started to call and say, how could you do this to someone? I'm obviously sacrificing myself, and you just don't care. So all the dots connecting there, hopefully for you guys. You can see the truth for what it is, finally. Anyway, so I didn't read the first letter very much, and then the second one, I actually prepared a 15-minute video going through the whole thing, point by point by point. But then I just lost motivation, because I still had feelings for her, and I was like, how can I release this video showing how horrible she's been to me when I still have this residue or this resonance or whatever of this love for her and knowing that she could be crying. And I made a video about it. I said I don't want to make her cry by responding with the truth, because it'll crush her. The truth is not on her side. And she was just doing all these things to make sure that she could feel like she came out on top and that she wasn't really dumped in the end. It was a very stressful thing to go through. But then I eventually released the truth when I kept getting harassed by people about what allegedly happened, which obviously didn't, for anyone paying attention. Why do you keep running around with that fat cow, Shiloh? That's what somebody says. She plays you like a book. You are a sad little man. Ha ha ha, she doesn't love you. Well, that's your opinion. I don't think she's a fat cow. I think she's a beautiful woman. So I'm sorry you feel that way. Do you ever feel bad for sharing certain things on YouTube? There are certain things that I should have revised more before I said them. Like, I felt very strongly towards a certain point, but then I realized that point was counterintuitive or counterproductive to what I had been fighting for a long time prior.